Yeah, this is Brian Lander from BleacherReport.com. I'd ask Greg, Denny, if having changes in the chase tracks this year, particularly the addition of Auto Club Speedway, but more importantly, the shifting of Talladega to later in the chase, is that going to change, or is there any change in mindset or strategy that you guys have going into that race, knowing that should you get caught up in an accident or something happen, that you have fewer races to catch up any points there?
I don't think so. I think by then you'll start to see the contenders for the championships kind of separate themselves at that point anyway. Typically, I think at Talladega you have, 6, 7, 8 guys that are really in contention for a championship, and then they get out of there, and next thing you know, you see a couple guys, and so I think it's just going to be it's going to be an advantage for the guys that are probably first, second in points that have maybe a little bit of a lead over the rest of the field to maybe take less chances when they go to Talladega. Otherwise, they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose a whole lot of points to the guys that are trying to gain points. So I don't think anyone's going to really change other than maybe the guy who's trying to protect his lead at that point.
Don.
Denny, it's Don Coble from Morris News Service. I asked Joey the same question. Joe Gibbs Racing has set a very high standard. Always good cars, good drivers, and everything. Toward the middle of this year, as an organization, you seem like you hit a little bit of a lull. It's taken you a while to fight through and get out of it. Have you identified, what went wrong, and what are you doing to get out of it? And is today a sign that maybe you are coming out of it?
Yeah, I think so. The 11 car has run extremely well over the last probably 3 months. The 18's, obviously, performance has dropped quite a bit. The 20's kind of plateaued. It seemed like he was making big gains, and the next, he's kind of plateaued. But I think a lot of it just had to do with, the communication with myself and Mike has gotten a lot better. And I'm, spending a whole lot more time at the shop trying to work on our cars and get them better. When we had that team meeting about 4 or 5 months ago, our cars weren't very good, until all three of us sat down with everyone at the shop and figured out what areas we need to work on. I don't think anyone really knew. All they would get was the feedback from the crew chiefs, and that might be a little bit different than what we're actually feeling in the car. So I think having that meeting was a big advantage, and we're starting to see some of that, seeing the fruition come to the racetrack now. We're just starting to see those advantages. So I think we did kind of plateau out there, but it's starting to go back on the upswing.
Steve Richards with PRN. Denny, can you talk about driving Kyle's car in practice and give us an update on how he's feeling?
Yeah, I'm not sure how he's feeling. Obviously, if he's getting out of a car, he's not feeling well at all. But that was different. He obviously requires a whole lot different feel in a car than what I do. Because when I got in it, it didn't feel like a JGR Nationwide car at all. It felt a lot different. So it's definitely keen to his driving style. And, so it's, we've been in situations like that before where I've needed Kyle and Joey to kind of step in when that kind of stuff happens. And that's the good thing about it, though, is that, we've got good enough talent in our teammates to we can rely on them. But, I'm sure he'll be fine for tomorrow. And if he can't, we'll be there and ready.
Any questions from the media center?
Yes, we have a question.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. Denny, 500 miles, long race, a big wide racetrack. There's plenty of time to get to the front, but is there a better time in the season to get your first pole?
No, not really. It definitely comes at a good time. You like to keep streaks alive for sure, and one is to have a pole each year, and we're obviously going to keep that alive. But qualifying's just been so bad for us through the course of the season. We've picked it up a little bit here in the last 2 months, but for the most part, on Fridays, if we end up 15th, we're pretty happy. And so, this is kind of out of the blue for us, but I think it's just, we're starting to learn so much about our, 1.5-mile, 2-mile program that, I'm confident next one we go to being, Charlotte, I'm pretty confident that we're going to have another car that maybe can contend.
Anything else in the press box?
Yes, we have another question. No more questions from the media center.
Anything from the terrace press box?
We do have one more question from the Terrace Press Box.
Yeah, this is Brian Ladner again from BleachReport.com. Denny, this being the first time that the double file restarts will be used here at Auto Club Speedway, how do you see that affecting the racing as a whole?
Not much. I think it'll change it at the end of the race. Probably the last 2 to 3 restarts will be very, very exciting because what happens is when you get the cars all bunched up like that, they tend to side draft off of each other and do things to kind of bog each other down. And I think you'll see 3-4 wide racing right at the end of this race if we have a late race caution, which we've tended to have, you know, through the course of these last few races, even if we didn't necessarily need it. But, you know, we just got to be prepared for that. And, you know, it's going to get exciting for sure, especially on a big track like this. I think the double file restarts, you can either lose a whole bunch of spots or you're going to gain a bunch. And hopefully you're on the good end of that when it finally does go green, and usually the outside line's the one that goes.
We got Will and then Louie back in here.
Denny, Will Graves with the AP. I'm just kind of curious. Juan was in here today talking about, I look at the next 3 races saying, how close can I stay to Jimmy? Didn't even mention the fact that Mark's actually leading in points. Given Jimmy's success, you know, here and in Martinsville and stuff, does it seem like, even though he's 18 points behind, that he's still sort of the one that's out there that everybody's chasing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do probably with is because Jimmy has come from further back over the last few years to win the title. So being that he's this close to the lead at this point, I think, you know, everyone's kind of threatened by it. But you know, his performance has been basically the same all year. I mean, he's in contention to win a lot of races each and every weekend. So, you know, you got to look at you got to give Mark his due. Also, he's really stepped up over these last few weeks, and Juan as well. Juan, you know, definitely deserves a lot of credit because he's finished, I think, in top 5 more than anyone so far in the chase. So you got to just worry about yourself. You can't worry about damage control on the 48 or the 5 or the 42. You got to just race your own race and get the best finish you can, you know, on any given day. You know, we had a 22nd place car at Dover. We finished 22nd. That's all we could do. And you're not going to control those guys that in their performance. That's why you can't worry about the points while you're out there on that racetrack.
Lewis Brewster with Daily Wilton. How important is track position? You're going to be out front. I think we had one pole winner win. How important is it to be out front for the first lap?
It'll be important to get 5 points more so than to be up front early. For myself, you know, I typically had to come from the back here at this racetrack. So, you know, what advantage I'll have is to be able to get a better gauge of my car early in the race. You know, usually our race weekends end up happening where we qualify 20th to 30th, and we get to the top 5 with about 100 laps to go. And then we start adjusting our race car to try to win the race. Well, by starting up front, you just get more adjustments in to try to fine-tune your car. And I think that's why a lot of times you see the guys that qualify up front will finish up front because they get more opportunities to refine their car for the dash at the end.
Nate Ryan, USA Day. Denny, you said you just threw something at it to get yourself to the pole. Is the hard work still ahead then tomorrow to get the race set up in a place where it can win, or is it just a matter of you just didn't quite hit the qualifying setup in practice?
We just didn't hit the qualifying. I think our race setup was pretty good, but I think what we threw at it just really gave it a lot of comfort, and there's definitely some things there that, I mean, really that we've not done typically on tracks like this. So hopefully when we go and practice tomorrow, we're going to see that same speed in the race car, because obviously we're not going to change much. And truthfully, our setup was more like a race setup than a qualifying. We threw a qualifying setup at it, and it was no faster than our race trim. So we just decided to go back to race trim, put tape on it, and go.